Okay, we're on to measures of variability, or sometimes called measures of spread. Okay, and there's 4 of them that we need to know. So range, interquartile range, standard deviation, and percentiles. So range we know from Junior Cert. Range is just the largest value take away the smallest value, right? And the biggest the range, the more spread out the data is, as in the furthest away from the mean is the data, right? Okay. The second one is the interquartile range. Again, we did this in Junior Cert, okay, but I'm going to give you for a formula for it now. So you've to find the quartile 1, which is the lower quartile, okay? So it's a quarter times n plus 1's value, right? Okay, so n is the number of items in the list. So you add 1 to that and you get a quarter of it, okay? And if it turns out to be 3, then it's the third number in the list. If it turns out to be 5, it's the 5th number in the list. If it turns out to be a non-integer value, as in a non-whole number, as in if you did your division and you ended up with 2 1/3, right, then you get the mean of the second and the third value. Okay, so if it turns out to be a whole number, it's that number in the list, right? And if it turns out to be a fraction, a non-integer value, you just get the average of the 2 whole numbers either side of it, right? Then you find the upper quartile, which should be quartile 3, right, which is 3/4 of the n plus 1 value, where n is the number of terms in the list. Okay, so then the interquartile range, number 4, is find the interquartile range, or step 3, sorry, is find the interquartile range, which is quartile 3 take away quartile 1. So here's an example, right? Here's a list of numbers. There's 9 numbers in that list. Find the range, the lower quartile, the upper quartile, and the interquartile range. So the first thing you need to do is the list needs to be in order. So you write it in order. Then to find the range, it's just the biggest number, which is 66, take away the smallest number, which is 41, and that'll give me 25. Okay, then to find the lower quartile, right? So the lower quartile, if you look at the numbers in the list here, right, the lower quartile, there's 9 numbers in the list. So you get a quarter of 9, n plus 1, quarter of 9 plus 1, which turns out to be 2.5. That's a non-integer value, so that means I get the mean of the second term and the third term. So on the list, the second term was 50, and the third term was also 50. So I get the mean of 50 and 50. So 50 divided by 2 is 50. So that's the lower quartile, right? To get the upper quartile, it's 3/4 of n plus 1, right? So that's 3/4 of 9 plus 1, which is 3/4 of 10, which is 7.5. Again, it's a non-integer value, right? So you get the mean of the 7th and 8th term in the list. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7th term is 64, the 8th term is 65. So I get the mean of those. 64 plus 65 divided by 2 is 64.5. So then to get the interquartile range, it's the upper quartile, which was 64.5, take away the lower quartile, which was 50, and that'll give me 14.5.